So the schedule starts Saturday afternoon, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Kansas City Chiefs. First time these two teams have ever played in the playoffs as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just like last week, Jags and Chargers, first time playoff matchup.
Mm-hmm.
This is good. 8.5 point Kansas City are the favorites here by 8.5. It's even higher in other places. So obviously on paper, big difference between these two teams. I think the question for me is, how much do you look at the recent run by the Jags? Do you split their season into two and say this was second half Jags, which is a whole different Trevor Lawrence? And I know they started the season with some hype and some buzz, going 2-1 and a big win against the Chargers. But second half of the season, do you look at the Jags any differently? And maybe it's going to be a little bit more competitive against the number 1 seed Chiefs.
Yeah, I think you probably have to. Vegas with the lines this week. It's not exactly, Vegas doesn't think it's going to stack up to last year. You know, it's not predicting for razor thin, amazing games that are going to come down to the final play. It's predicting for, 3 reasonably comfortable victories and 1, close enough. And this is the one to me that feels like it has the biggest potential to be a pretty lopsided game. I think you need Trevor Lawrence playing at the peak of his powers. Second half Trevor Lawrence from last week and also from the second half of the season for them just to hang in a shootout with Kansas City. No matter what happens, I find it difficult to find a way that this Jacksonville defense can slow down Kansas City overall. And if they can't, now you're asking a lot of Trevor Lawrence in that offense, which is playing pretty well, but still, you can see the lack of talent in certain areas during the games, right? And if that shows up, or if he's not able to have that kind of perfect game, man, it's hard to see them hanging with the Chiefs.
I'd be remiss if I didn't make some kind of comparison to the upstart Jags in the 96 Jaguars.
Yeah.
So the 96 Jaguars went into Buffalo in the wild card round as 8.5 point underdogs.
Okay.
Won the game 30-27 against Jim Kelly and the Bills. Then they go to Denver, week 2, divisional round, number 1 seed Broncos. This was Elway's year. This was their year to win the Super Bowl. They had it all set up.
Like every other year.
12.5 point underdogs. And the Jags win 30-27 again. So obviously, there's a chance for an upset here because it happened back in 96. Okay, sorry. But actual, real on-field stuff to talk about here. I thought that early in the game last week with the Chargers being so physical with Jags receivers and all that stuff, you're going to see that with Kansas City. No team plays, or one team plays more press coverage maybe than the Chiefs.
Also, shouldn't that just be your default position in the playoffs? They changed the way they officiate the playoffs. We don't want to. Let's dial it back, right? Make them go the other way. Just start off every game assuming you can mug receivers until told otherwise by the amount of laundry on the field.
And the Chiefs in particular, we're going to see that. No duo had more, no outside cornerback duo had more press coverage snaps than the Chiefs. Jalen Watson and L'Jarius Sneed are 1 and 2 in press coverage snaps. So I think the Jags have to have those middle of the field answers again, but right away, right? You can't be forcing it outside, to Marvin Jones or Zay Jones or whatever. If they're locked up, the Chiefs are aggressive. They'll mix it up with the blitz and the pass rush and all that stuff. But the Jags have to have those answers right away. It took them a little bit of time to adjust in the Chargers game. The other thing that's interesting, we always like to look at the last matchup, right? The last matchup was 27-17. Chiefs got up early, but there's always those games during the season where the Chiefs are the clear favorites, but they start to hand the game away a little bit, right? They had was there a surprise onside kick in there, or they fumbled an onside, they fumbled a kickoff, they were turning it over, just some stupid plays by the Chiefs that actually brought the Jags back into it. Now, back in week 10, we thought the Jags were just some lowly 3-6 team, right? That was oh man, the Chiefs should roll. Turns out the Jags were an eventual playoff team that had turned it around right around that time of the season. So at the time, it was man, the Chiefs are handing a team a game. But regardless, it's the same thing. If the Chiefs beat themselves, right? If they beat themselves, that gives the Jags a chance in this game.
Yeah. No, I think it does. They did have a game plan that was a little bit different against Kansas City than most teams. Most teams have shown Kansas City, the same kind of looks. Jacksonville hasn't necessarily, or didn't necessarily do that when they played them. They were more aggressive with the kind of too high looks that everybody showed them last year. That hasn't actually done it this year. Like, that's one of the curious things this season, is that what we expected to be the blueprint against Kansas City hasn't been. Last season, they struggled against these too high looks. This season, either they figured it out right away and everyone went, uh-oh, they solved it, do something else, or absent Tyreek Hill, teams immediately just decided before you even played the Chiefs, well, there's no reason to do that anymore because Tyreek Hill was what was driving that. But when they played, Jacksonville played a ton of those too high looks. So I think their defense is going to show the Chiefs something different than they typically see on a weekly basis. But I think this offense is just too good not to have success against anything.
Other notes about that game, to your point, they didn't blitz Mahomes, which again is like historically a bad idea, right? I mean, that's where when you talk about Mahomes, we both ranked him as the top quarterback remaining in the playoffs here. That is the same thing you always heard about Brady and Manning and Breeze and Rodgers. Like, you don't blitz the best quarterbacks, for various reasons, right? They can recognize it, they can react to it quickly enough, and they have answers, and they're accurate enough to get the ball where it needs to go. So usually you don't do that. Mahomes is that guy, right? The scheme itself does a really good job of having answers. Mahomes just has, you got people were complaining because when you guys were building the best quarterback, Mahomes didn't win anything, which is, again, it's like, doesn't matter. You could argue arm if you really wanted to because of the way he throws the ball. But regardless, if you guys had a category for just vision and feel and all that stuff, I think it's Mahomes by a mile, right? I mean, just all of that stuff. And that goes into blitz recognition and seeing the field, knowing where to go with the ball. And even you guys said, hey, when Brady moves on, or if you say he's too old or whatever, give Mahomes the decision-making title of he's the best decision maker, which is weird for a guy that throws back across his body and all that stuff. Yeah. But because he's so successful making those plays, you could say those are good decisions, right? He knows himself. He's got, to me, it's the spatial awareness that he has. So all that said, will the Jags change it up a little bit? The Jags had their worst pass rush grade of their season against the Chiefs. And I don't know, do they just trust Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Arden Key, to those guys to win some one-on-ones against a very good Chiefs offensive line?
But I think it's tied to what we were talking about before of them trying to play coverage and not blitzing and showing the too high stuff. And basically that means you're relying on those front four guys to get pressure. But I think you're almost in a world where you're saying we're probably not getting pressure either way. The more important thing is to flood coverages and just make him do it the hard way. Like, he'll probably do it, but I think it still is the right solution or the best thing you can do against Patrick Mahomes. Like, if you don't have an obvious trump card on defense, like Dallas's pass rush or some elite coverage on the back end, like if you don't have something where you can rely on them just winning, and you have to say, what is the game plan that should happen against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes? It probably is to just make them earn it the longest route possible, like make them take a series of plays, and every time they score, make it cost 10, 15 plays. And okay, if they're going to do that, fine, but at least you're making them earn it, right? If you blitz them just to try and get pressure on Mahomes, he's going to carve it up anyway, and they're going to have the exact same result, only it's going to take them 2 plays.
And Mahomes did carve them up in the first game. It was one of his better games from a grading standpoint, 91.4 overall. It was better. It was a good statistical game too, 26 of 35 for 331, 4 touchdowns, had a pick in there as well. But it was one of Mahomes' best games, and he spread the ball around. The other thing that Mahomes did back in 2018 that I was most impressed with when he first started in the league, it wasn't the highlight reel plays. It was that he overall took what was there, right? And that was what was weird about last season is they didn't necessarily have those adjustments, right? The Chiefs offense has set such a high standard that when they hit this midseason lull, it was like, uh-oh, what's going on? Why are they not dominating? And it was because Mahomes got impatient for a while.
Yeah.
But he's back to playing a patient game, and it is a different offense, right? It is Jerick McKinnon, who's got, 8 receiving touchdowns in the last 7 or 8 games. It's Kadarius Toney a couple times a game. It is their speed and quicks along with Travis Kelce working the underneath stuff that is the foundation of this offense, right? And then, oh, by the way, if you get too lazy there, then we'll go over the top. But it's different from Tyreek Hill's going to stretch the field. Kelsey's going to work the short and intermediate. We're going to play this, 3-man game basically. Mahomes is spreading the ball around, taking what's there, and it's been really difficult for teams to stop because it's not about stopping one person anymore, right? It's about stopping the entire offense, and Mahomes has just run it beautifully this year.
But I think the fact that at least that somewhere in the past there is evidence that Mahomes can get impatient and frustrated if you make him take the long route to scoring means that's your best starting point. Like, it might not work. It's entirely possible that the best quarterback in the NFL playing the best football of his career in the best offense in the NFL is going to hammer you no matter what you do. But I think it's at least the correct process and the correct starting point to work from, and then just hope you catch, a few breaks here and there.
So if the Jags stick with their 4-man rush, I think they need special games from their athletes. They've got really good athletes up front, and Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker and the guys we've mentioned, and those guys need to win. And I think when the Jags defenses look good, you generally point back at that front and say, well, they played a really good game. They played a very, very good game. The Jags linebackers, a little hit or miss this year, right? I know Foye Olokun gets a ton of credit for making a ton of tackles and very, say, Devin White-ish in that he makes tackles, he makes splash plays, he kind of shows up in a lot of games, but there's some ugly games in there too. He graded much better this year than he did last year. He was a good player overall for the Jags, but I think there's a lot of pressure on their linebackers. Maybe more than ever, right? As far as when you're playing the Chiefs, it's on those guys to play the run. They're going to run the ball a little bit, but also stop the underneath stuff.
And he's also the guy that gets everybody lined up in that defense. Like, outside of him, they've got rookie Devin Lloyd. He's splitting time with Chad Muma, fellow rookie. You can kind of see Olokun directing the traffic. Like, he's making sure everybody's in the right gap. He's making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be, that they've got their assignments down almost before every single snap. So the dude is, like, on the one hand trying to figure out what he's doing and making his own plays, and on the other hand is sort of like a schoolmaster looking around, making sure all the young guys know what the hell they're doing on a given play. The other thing that this defense needs to do is, like, all season long, teams have forced Kansas City into 3rd and long and then haven't stopped them. Like, 3rd and 19, whatever. Mahomes to Kelsey, first down. Like, it's absurd. They are picking up 3rd and longs at 45%.
It's insane.
Right. And that's so 7 and more, right? But they're like, that's nuts. That level, that percentage of converting on 3rd and long is madness. That's supposed to be a difficult situation. Like, that's your advantageous spot for a defense. We've got them in 3rd and long. We get to pin our ears back. We know the ball's going to come out pretty quickly, and they have to try and pick up a huge amount of yardage. So we're golden. Like, this is the perfect spot. And the Chiefs are just like, whatever. It's just a normal play.
Well, the Chiefs pick them up. What makes them so difficult in 3rd and long is they pick up those first downs in different ways, right? Yeah. It's Mahomes from the pocket where guys are getting open or schemed open. It's Mahomes outside the pocket if you let him break free, either running or passing, right? He can do it multiple ways. He converted that 3rd and 17 or 18 or whatever it was against Tennessee. So that's the other thing. If the Jags are going to rush 4, Sam, do you want to win reps here and there? Like, do you want to just have, I don't know what the balance is, right? Do you mush rush and say, don't get too far upfield, retrace your steps, don't let Mahomes break the pocket? Or do you say, we need splash plays. Every now and again, we need that 2-second win where we pick up a sack, strip sack or something like that. It's so tough when you rely on that 4-man rush. I think to coach your rushers to perform, to do it the right way against Mahomes.
I don't think you need the 2-second win, but I think that's where you need your athletes to show up. Like, Jacksonville's defense, their pass rushers, they're not great, but because they've all been drafted high, they're almost all spectacular athletes. Like, when you look at Trayvon Walker, the other Josh Allen, Arden Key, like, these guys are special movement, speed, explosive type of players. They don't necessarily need to win in 2 seconds, but when Mahomes starts to break the pocket and starts to go somewhere, they need to be able to mirror and chase him down and make sure that he's not able to just escape and buy 3 more seconds for Kelsey to get open some weird way and then fire the ball in there. Cincinnati did a really good job of this when they played Kansas City, and they had, like, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, who are 2 pretty good athletes themselves. Like, Jacksonville can match those guys for athlete for athlete. They're not as good a player, but the great work that those 2 guys were doing was when Mahomes started to bail. Like, they were able to stay under control shadow him outside of the pocket and chase him down and force him to go somewhere with the ball quickly, as opposed to getting out of control, trying to win initially and then just being taken out of the play. So, guys like Trayvon Walker, it's like, look, you're not really getting a ton of pressure anyway. So concentrate less on that.
Yeah.
Concentrate more on making sure you're there when he starts to bail, and then use your athletic ability.
It feels like a lifetime ago, but the last time we saw the Chiefs was the ring around the rosy huddle play against the Raiders. And on top of all this, right, Mahomes is special, and they've got, I think it's a good group of playmakers, the way they deploy them. Travis Kelce, of course, being the star there. A good offensive line. And then, oh, by the way, the creativity, right? There's just so much to defend. Timely, because our friend Josh Norris just posted a video of all the different ways Kadarius Toney was deployed in the Jacksonville matchup last time. And we're talking orbit motion, jet motion, leaking out into the flat, and all these different things. And every time you give Andy Reid, the extra week, I think I haven't checked up on his recent bye record and all that stuff, but that was legendary for a while. Mm-hmm. Whether he's great coming off that or not, we've seen the Chiefs rusty coming out of byes. I'm less worried about that, but there's so much for the Jags to prepare for, right? And it looks like their defense has to just play a really clean game to win, and then who knows what the Chiefs do in the red zone, right? Like, what are they going to break out in the red zone right now? There's always some level of creativity there. Maybe they have a constraint play for the merry-go-round. You need a play off of that. We've only seen a speed option throwback screen coming off of that. What if they just want to run mesh coming off of that? You could run anything.
You could.
But right now, they have a strong tendency for every time you see the merry-go-round huddle, you're going to see speed option throwback screen.
100%.
So you're going to be like, alert, speed option, throwback screen. And then they're going to be like, nope, we're just running speed option here. So you don't know what the answer is going to be here with the Chiefs.
Yeah, 100% so far is a strong tendency.
Yeah, thank you. And our other friend, Andrew Siciliano, I'm just in tune with. Then I have a declaration to make.
Okay.
Sicily says, could get messy in Kansas City Saturday. Cloudy early with periods of light rain and snow later in the day.
Yeah.
It's a 4:30 start, right? Some mixed winter precipitation is possible. Winds light and variable. Chance of precipitation is 50%.
Mixed winter precipitation.
Mixed winter precipitation.
The PFF app says 35 degrees, 5-mile-an-hour winds and snow.
Doesn't say broken clouds?
No, it's much more declarative. It's not mixed winter precipitation. It's snow.
So not only am I keeping an eye on Twitter right now, but I'm also keeping an eye on the chat. And I see the people in the YouTube chat say, don't forget, pick the opposite of Steve. But I have a declaration to make. My declaration is Playoff Steve has arrived. I have arrived. Playoff Steve is 4-2.
Playoff Steve
Playoff
is
4-2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the NFC South. I had a bad year, but somehow I snuck into the playoffs. You're still letting me make picks. And here I am, 4-2.
Bringing your overall record to?
It's a new season.
47 games under 500.
It's a new season. A new season.
No, it's not.
What's your new season record?
Well,
I know
my
what it is.
total
it's
1-5 record is 21 games better than you.
In the playoffs.
Which is still terrible.
In the January, Steve, even. Yeah, because it did start week 17 and 18. Kind of got into a roll.
It started once your son started making picks for you.
No, I went away from Harry. Harry's 2-4 in the playoffs, which is still a game better than your 1-5.
Oh, yeah. I've been horrific in the playoffs. I've been, in fact, horrific since your son came into the equation and started to complicate
Keep my
things.
son out of this.
And, well, you could have kept your son out of it, and then I'd have been fine.
Should have, for your sake. Yeah.
So hang on, what was your declaration? The playoff Steve is a different animal? That's
Playoff Steve's arrived. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. I've declared that.
All right. So what does playoff Steve pick here?
I want to talk a little Jags offense first.
Okay.
But first, I want to remind people, as Meme Guy reminded us in his sleep, he's hearing, the PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow? Well, Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance investment and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Maybe they have some cool huddle options in their playbook as well. You should go check it out. You can team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. You can get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. I wonder if they have like an Andy Reid playbook over there. All the answers, all the options, great red zone options all over at westernsouthern.com/PFF. Real quick, other side of the ball though. Trevor Lawrence probably needs to be special.
Yeah.
He hasn't put together a full game over the last 2 weeks, right? Must-win games. Good start against Tennessee. They kind of offense disappeared late. Against the Chargers, it was the opposite. Really slow start, and then they turned it on late. I think you need a full, it doesn't have to be special, but just a full good game from Trevor Lawrence. And sometimes we get caught up in the special, right? The great throw, the here, and the spectacular play, the highlight reel. I think the best thing Trevor Lawrence did last week was taking what was there defensively. He kept hitting passes underneath. They busted coverage. It goes over the top. He played a really clean game after he threw 4 interceptions, right? Didn't he? 3 of which were probably unlucky. But he played a really clean game, and he just took what was there, took what was there. I think he's got to handle some pressure from Kansas City, some tighter windows with the press coverage that they play, and take what's there. And if he does that, that's the Jags' best chance. I think the Chiefs are going to have some pass rush success, though, with Chris Jones in particular.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing from his point of view is that you probably have to assume that you're starting from the standpoint of we need to hit 30 points to have any shot.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about all the ways it feels very difficult to imagine a world where the Chiefs don't put up that kind of total. So if you're going to have any kind of chance of springing this upset, you need to be able to match them with that kind of offensive production, which is possible, but doesn't give you an awful lot of margin for error. The Jags' offensive line has been weirdly good in pass protection this season. I think that takes a hit with Cam Robinson down and Walker Little, who was the subject of our Explain the Grade thing yesterday, with him in there. But yeah, the main threat from Kansas City is right up the middle with Chris Jones, who is having, a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. That guy has been a wrecking machine almost all the way through the season. The fact that he can then kick out and do it on the edge as well is also terrifying for an offensive line. Like, he's definitely going to bring some pressure.
All right, the one last thing here. The Jags and Doug Peterson will play to win, right? It sounds like a ridiculous cliche statement, but they will be aggressive on 4th downs, and they'll go for it when people are asking you to take the points and take the 3. You don't take the points against the Chiefs. You play for 6. You play for your 6.5. I hope you hit the extra point. So we know we'll get that aspect of it, right? We know we'll get some level of underdog aggressiveness from Doug Peterson. I think he was actually a little conservative in the last Chiefs game, a couple punts right around midfield, but they were like 4th and 3s, 4th and 4 type of. If you get into 4th and 1, 4th or 2, I think they're go for it anytime you're on your own 40 or beyond. So that'll be the other interesting thing to watch for the Jags. If they're going to pull the upset, they at least have those elements in their favor. They're going to be aggressive and give it a shot. So I hope we see a good game, man. I hope we see a good one here. But the Chiefs are a better team. They won by 10 the first time out. They're favored by 8.5. Where are you going with this one?
And this could also be it's been happening the second half of the season and the second half of last week, et cetera. But this could be like Trevor Lawrence's real coming out party. Like, if he goes toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes and a better Kansas City team in the playoffs, even if he doesn't pull the upset, if he gets close, this could be the game that everyone's like, all right, Trevor Lawrence is absolutely legit now.
Let's do narrative stuff, though, because I like this with the playoffs, right? Patrick Mahomes has played in an AFC championship every single year he's been the starter. He has never played a real road playoff game. Don't tell me the Tampa Super Bowl. That's not it just coincidentally happened to be against the Bucs in Tampa. It's not really a road playoff game.
Kind of.
It's not, because the season ticket holders don't get all the tickets. It's not a road playoff game.
I mean, it's not at home, and it's on the road.
It's a neutral site.
At a site that
it's
happened to be
neutral site.
Team.
It was predetermined, neutral site.
Right, but it ended up being...
He's going to have a neutral site AFC championship if the Chiefs and Bills win.
At the very minimum, it's road adjacent. It's right there.
It's not an official road game. He's never played an official road game. He still won't.
Okay.
It's still not going to happen. They're the number 1 seed. My point is, they've been in the AFC championship every single year. The Mahomes-Reed Chiefs legacy is getting up there with the Patriots, but they're just behind in Super Bowls, right? They're the team that's in the AFC championship every single year. They're the team to knock off, even though the Bengals did it last year. The Chiefs are the team to beat. They're back as the number 1 seed. And then you have the upstart Jaguars, where there's the 3 definitive top quarterbacks, probably in the NFL, but definitely in the AFC, and Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. And Trevor Lawrence wants to join that group, right? He wants to be a part of that group. And then you've got Trevor Lawrence living in Mark Brunell's shadow, because in 96, Brunell went into Denver and he pulled the upset against Elway as 12.5-point dogs. And they went to the AFC Championship, got waxed by New England. But either way, they went to the AFC Championship in a year that they shouldn't have. And the Jags are trying to repeat history here. with Trevor Lawrence trying to be the next Mark Brunell. I mean, Lawrence is trying to be he's jockeying for position to be the second best quarterback in Jags history.
Who is that right now?
David Garrard.
David Garrard.
Yeah. Trevor Lawrence is trying to put himself
ahead of David Garrard
to be QB2 behind Mark Brunell in franchise history. That's what's on the line here this weekend.
Stakes don't get higher than that.
I got the Chiefs covering the 8.5.
Yeah, this is the one I think from the week that I feel the most confident about. So obviously it'll be the other way. Trevor Lawrence wins. I just
1-5 Sam. 1-5 playoff Sam.
Yeah.
Feeling real confident
You're
about this.
really mouthy for a guy that was literally the statistically worst game picker that the game has ever seen.
I'm the Jags. I snuck into the playoffs and then, I won a game.
Yeah. No, you're like Tom Brady trash talking, Dallas before last week. Like what are you? I'm Tom Brady. I'm the greatest the game has ever seen. I'm going to go out and stomp you and on my way to the next Super Bowl.
Except he's got a way better track record than I do.
Yeah. I mean, look, we just outlined all the ways that Kansas City's offense is still going to put up a ton of points. And then it's like, can Jacksonville hang with that? I don't know, but it doesn't feel that likely.